Hey everyone, and welcome to r/TalesFromretail, and also Tales from Tech Support. That's right, I am visiting 2 subs today, just because I want to give you double the fun. No, but actually the real reason is I have a couple of really good stories from each sub, and I want to get through all of them, so I've decided, why not, gonna put the 2 together. I've done it before, and it's worked pretty damn well. We'll start in r/TalesFromretail, then move on to r/TalesFromTechSupport. As usual, I'm going to put timestamps in the description, so if you only want to see one of those subs, feel free to skip to those. But with that said, let's not waste another second and get straight into this first one by user/Great Odin's Whiskers. This was probably 10 years ago at this point, but I worked at an auto parts store right out of technical college. We sold brake pads with a lifetime warranty. The warranty covers manufacturing issues as well as long-term wear. You wear those brake pads down from normal use, you can buy new ones and bring back the old ones for the warranty. Or bring us the old ones and we can swap them out right there. What is not covered is improper use. Installing on something other than the vehicle the pads were intended, modifications to the pads, or, as in this case, improper installation. The cast are the MeKaNiK, the guy who purchased and apparently installed the pads, me, my boss, and my coworker, who was a master mechanic at a car company with a blue logo before a motorcycle accident prevented him from actually working on cars anymore. I say that all because he's the guy who would know what he's talking about. He was also in the back of a store and didn't hear any of the interaction. MeKaNiK guy comes in with the brake pads he purchased a short time ago. They are not at all usable anymore. He bought our top-of-the-line ceramic brake pads. These pads were a fairly new product in our store at the time, and we didn't know how they actually performed. But they were marketed as the best ceramic pads you could buy for everyday driving, as well as a little high-speed fun on the weekends. So to have them go back in a short amount of time was odd to be sure. These pads are garbage. I bought them a few months ago and they're already trashed. And they ruined my rotors. So you guys need to give me new pads and pay for new rotors too. I explain that we're sorry about the issue and we'd be glad to help him in any way we can and blah blah blah. I take a look at the pads and immediately notice the odd wear pattern. It looks like the pads were installed upside down. Sir, these pads look like they were installed upside down. Upside down? No, I'm a mechanic. I've been working on cars for longer than you've been alive. This goes on for a hot minute, but the conversation followed those lines. How dare you? Who do you think you are? Threatens my job and blah blah blah. Bossman hears the commotion and steps in to try to calm things down. Hi sir, what seems to be the issue here? This punk seems to think he knows better than me and claimed I installed my brake pads upside down. Sir, the wear pattern on these pads show that they were installed upside down. With that being the case, unfortunately, we cannot warranty the pads out. The warranty doesn't cover improper installation. What kind of store is this? Is this how you treat all your customers? Blah blah blah, you know the drill. Sir, if it would make you feel better, we do have an employee who's a master mechanic for car company and keeps his automotive service excellence certifications current. Would you like him to take a look? Absolutely! Get someone up here with a brain! Hey, coworker, can you come up here for a second? Yeah, boss. Walks up to the counter. What's up? Coworker, do you notice anything odd about these brake pads? Yeah, looks like they were installed upside down. MeKaNiK guy is fuming at this point. He leaves with no new pads and no new rotors. My coworkers and I had a pretty good laugh about that, as well as a conversation about how the hell he installed the pads upside down. Alright, this did get a bit technical, but we all got the point. He may have not have been the smartest person when it came to brakes, but at least he was smart enough to realise when he was wrong. And here's the next one by user/TravelAngle23. This happened a few years ago, but we had 2 large unisex bathrooms with a long metal bar by the toilet for making it handicap accessible, along with lots of space for a wheelchair. Anyways, that day we didn't receive toilet paper for our restrooms, and we had the last of it in the bathrooms. Now, you know the kind of toilet paper dispensers that hold the large rolls. Normal toilet paper cannot fit. We contacted them, and we would be receiving it in the morning. In the meantime, we placed bought rolls of toilet paper in there in case it ran out. A lady in a wheelchair and her husband came in and they went into one restroom. She came out screaming at me because our bathroom almost made her fall and hurt herself. Someone had placed one roll on the handrail to use. Mind you, the handrail is about 3 feet long. And because someone sat one there, she had nowhere to hold onto the rail. She also yelled because we were discriminating against her as it was extremely unsanitary. I apologised and told her unfortunately we don't have access until morning to any more of the rolls of toilet paper for dispensers. But that we were trying to keep the restrooms open for customers in the meantime. She continued by telling me that she was going to call the health department to tell them what we did and to get us in trouble along with other outlets to make us pay. It still baffles me. No one forced her to use our bathroom. And her finding the toilet paper unsanitary for being sat out? Little does she know that several times we had men pee up into the dispenser. At least, with it out, you can see if it's clean or not. And oh my god, toilets in public places are a mystery of their own. Personally, I don't even want to know what goes on in there. Like, I just assume if I've used a toilet in a public place, I've just contracted, maybe 12, 15 diseases, and I think I just got to accept that at that point. And here's another one, a very good one for a change, this time by user/Vigorous Rapscallion. So, I'm training an employee for the first time, and it's been going really well. He's very stoic and kind of quiet, but he's hardworking and doesn't ever need to be asked to do something or do a task at a scheduled time. He's honestly a great addition to the team, and I'm happy to have him. Today, my dad came into work to bring me food because I was working a double. Didn't ask him to, he's the effing best. I was stocking in the back room when he brought me food, put it in the fridge, and went out to the floor. I was walking out and hung back for a second because my dad was talking to the new guy. I hear my dad, who's a constant joker, go, "Don't listen to anything my son tells you. He's frankly a criminal and a bad influence." And the guy just responds, "I know you're joking, but your son is a good man." I had no idea how much hearing that would mean to me. I had to go back into the break room and collect myself for a few minutes. Retail's not all bad, y'all. And it's great seeing a lovely one like this. It's nice if you feel good about yourself, but if someone else tells you that you're a good person, it just takes it to the absolutely next level. Of course, I think that I'm awesome, but if someone else thinks I'm awesome, that is just all the more awesome. And here's the next one by user/Accidentally Clueless. This happened 1 or 2 years ago. It was the weekend, so the store was filled with people. My next customer was a middle-aged woman with a short blonde haircut, eyelash extensions that needed refilling, and etc. She paid with cash, and when I was about to give her change, she decided she didn't want one of the items anymore. So I refunded her the item. I gave her the change for the first transaction, original purchase, plus the amount for the item she returned. She looked at the money I gave her and said it wasn't right. I explained the whole process. You give me this much, then you return this item. The value of the item was this much, so this is what you get back. At this point, she was adamant I was wrong and she was right. So she did the whole dramatic sigh and eye roll thing and began talking very loudly, so that other customers could hear that I had given her the wrong change. I told her again that the amount I'd given her was correct. One of my managers was nearby and told the customer that we could count all the money in the register to make sure the correct change was given. Side note, I have social anxiety, so being talked down to in front of a whole line of customers and then having her stand there and watch while I counted all the money in the register was horrible. I was shaking the entire time. As soon as my manager told her I'd given her the correct change, the customer stopped looking at me and acted like I didn't exist. She directed her conversation only to my manager and made up excuses that she must have gotten mixed up. She then left the store, completely ignoring me. I guess an apology was too much to expect. Look, I'm telling you, as soon as I heard middle-aged woman with a short blonde haircut, I was like, trouble is coming. And I mean, clearly this woman did get mixed up because, she did, and it was proven. I mean, would have been nice if she'd apologized OP, but you also, Middle-aged woman with a short blonde haircut. You know the drill. You know what to expect. And that something isn't an apology. And now, as promised, we are moving to r/Tales from Tech Support. This first one is absolutely hilarious. I've been waiting so long to cover it and just haven't had the time. You guys are gonna love this. This story isn't of mine, but my mother's, from the time she worked as tech support for a super big 3-letter firm. Background, my mom worked in the 90s in this firm as a server tech support. Also, I'm not from the US, but the Czech Republic. One day, she received a call from one of the state agencies that the system is not working at all. So, she drove to the town to investigate. The conversation looked something like this. So, what's the problem? I can turn on the computer, but I can't even log in. This happens to all of us on all of the computers. My mum confirms that this is true and goes to see the server. When she walks in, she can see dark server with cloth and a coffee pot on it. Not to mention a table and chairs in the super small room. Why did you unplug the server? Oh, we thought it's not needed since nobody works on this computer, and this is the only air-conditioned room in the building. So we made it our rest area. The outcome, this happened again a few weeks later. This time, my mum was able to determine by phone that they replaced the server with a fridge. And I just love this one so much because I can totally see it happening. They've grabbed a teapot, they've grabbed some cups, put a cloth over it, and said, "What's this box doing? We don't need it. There's an aircon running. Let's just turn this thing off and have our coffee here." I don't know why, this just sits so vividly in my mind. I can just totally see this one. But let's move on to the next one. This one by user/Gion. A few stapled together papers landed on my desk. I looked up. It was my boss. "Good morning, OP. Can you take a look at these requirements and give me an estimate? We might have a new project for you." "Sure thing, boss." My boss is the best boss ever. It could be that he's just and rational, wanting to keep me employed, because I'm good at what I do. But I don't think so. He's also a great guy. The requirements were nothing special. Collect some data, display some reports, stuff like that. Simple. The client was happy with my estimate, so we go meet them. My contact at the client is a tall, large man in his 60s. I'm tall myself, but he's towering over me at yet another 4 inches. His handshake is firm, bordering on abusive. When he speaks, the whole room resonates with his bass voice. He has a gravitas that forces you to take him seriously. If this was the Stone Age, he would be the clan leader, and no one would think of questioning it. A true alpha male. "Hello, OP. I'm Alpha," he says. Once the room has stopped resonating, and he's given my hand back, I involuntarily compare myself to him. I'm lanky with a creaky voice. I had a baby face until I turned 35 and can barely grow a beard. Good thing I base my sense of self-worth on my professional abilities instead. We land the project, and a couple of weeks later, we have another meeting. Having built most of what the initial requirements asked for, I was proud to show the prototype of the interface. The client seemed mostly happy, but had some additional features they wanted to add. This went on for a couple of weeks. Each of them in isolation wasn't a big deal, but they started to add up. We call this phenomenon feature creep. The creep of features eventually slowed down, but not until they included a complete customer relationship management tool. Alpha was not happy with the rate of progress. Unfortunately, I didn't have much to demo since I was working on the underlying structure rather than the user interface. I suggested I would add parts of the UI as mockups, non-functional interfaces to make it easier to visualize the end product. This made Alpha happy, but he was still impatient. He suggested he would make sketches of the screens for me to implement. This was a great idea because having something visual makes it easier to communicate and reason about the project. It's a tool I've used a lot. A couple days later, Alpha comes back. He's excited. He's drawn up sketches in PowerPoint for about 10 screens and even added links on buttons to flip to the target sketches. This is great. I immediately notice inconsistencies. That's okay, it's just a sketch. The whole point is to sort that kind of issue out. So I start building the mock-up UI based on the sketches, but with my own correction. In some places, the sketches are a bit nonsensical. That's okay too. Not everyone is a professional UI designer. I just adapted the sketches as needed. I showed my progress to Alpha regularly, but he seemed less satisfied each day. Eventually, he makes it clear that he expects me to follow his sketches exactly. There is no room for my interpretation. Whoa, the sketches have suddenly become a specification. Inconsistencies and all. What is worse, Alpha has become so emotionally invested in the sketches that I have to argue for each and every change. I can sense that this is a delicate subject, but I feel it's my duty as a professional to try and reason with Alpha. Hey Alpha, the sketches are a great starting point for talking, but not a great user interface. Perhaps let me do the actual designs? I am a professional. I've worked on successful projects for decades. I think I know what I'm doing. I need a way forward, so I talk with my boss. He's baffled as well, but suggests we try to give Alpha what he asks for, since reasoning with him isn't working. I put aside the UI I'd been working on and start over fresh. When I tried to deduce the underlying data structure for the designs, things like contact info would be wildly inconsistent. Sometimes there would be multiple phone numbers or none. Same with names and email. Physical addresses would have random parts missing. Okay, I let Alpha know about each issue and built them the way he sketched out. All of his completed designs were broken and half-baked. Alpha actually seemed happier after this, but he complained about the size of the screens. He had to scroll to see all of each screen. He doesn't like scrolling. I prodded him about the actual issue. It turned out that he designed the user interface in PowerPoint to fit each screen in its entirety on the computer at once. His computer. After more questioning, I found out that he had a 14-inch laptop. The end users have either 24-inch desktop monitors or smartphones. Part of the problem is that Alpha has invented his own UI paradigms. Screens would have a fixed layout with no scrolling. Web apps don't work like that. I believe his decades of experience was from terminal-based mainframe systems, like the airports and banks usually have. Alpha wanted to use input fields to display output data. To make input-output text fields distinct, they would have differently coloured borders. I explained that a separate output layout for input-output is much more compact, easier to read, and actually had a hope of fitting on his laptop screen. But he wasn't interested. He didn't know what a pop-up modal dialog was. You know, when you save a file and a dialog asks for a location and a file name, and you can't continue working until you click OK or cancel. He instead insisted on creating new entries by selecting New in a select box that would also select an existing entry for editing or display. This is bad separation of concerns and leads to horrible messy code. It's also tricky when there's no existing entry and you can't detect when the new option is selected, because it's the only one. All of this made the development take at least 4 times as long as necessary. Somehow, the project kept chugging along. After completing all the mockups, it was time to add the actual functionality. Keep in mind that nothing so far worked. It was all a facade, like a Western movie set. I began to explain the methodology we like, that I personally, as well as most of the software industry believes in, minimal viable project. In essence, you start with something tiny and expand on it, making sure you always have something working. This is important because the alternative, to plan everything out in detail and start building it all at once, very rarely works, is expensive, slow, and can't handle changing requirements. And requirements always change. These kinds of mismanaged projects can easily kill a company. So, as you can see, we should start small and expand the project one feature at a time, to ensure we stay on track. No, since we have little time, it's important we complete one PowerPoint screen at a time and not go back to it. When it's done, it's done. I absolutely do not want to hear that you're rewriting code that has already been completed. At this point, I tried to explain about technical debt and how it affects software projects. Basically, when you write code, you make assumptions. And as you make changes to the code, the assumptions are no longer true, if they ever were. So old pieces make less and less sense. So the pieces don't really fit together that well anymore. This needs to be fixed, and if you don't, you accumulate technical debt. Once a step grows too large, you have weird-looking code all over the place, and making any changes becomes very time-consuming or even impossible. The fix is to constantly rewrite code so it makes more sense. This is called refactoring. But Alpha brushed me off, clearly not interested in excuses. My boss glanced at me with wide eyes. Once Alpha left, I asked my boss about no rewrite rule. Boss, you do know I constantly rewrite code, right? Yeah, what is this problem? Don't worry about that for now, just do your job the way you decide. This all took a great toll on my mental health, giving me a lot of stress. I got headaches from clenching my jaws and had to take painkillers every night. Later, Alpha complained about my people skills. My boss, knowing this was BS, decided he would be our contact person, shielding me from Alpha. He also contacted the client CEO to talk about the communication difficulties. The CEO apologized and told boss that Alpha had had a freakout with their own people recently. But he'd promised to behave. I also found out their hardware person, also managed by Alpha, was on the verge of burning out. Luckily for my mental health, I was needed on another project, so an older colleague took over. We spent some time together, bringing him up to speed and solving issues he ran into. During one of these sessions, we ended up talking about my frustrations. It was hard, you know. I wanted to do my best. I take pride in my work, but he just wouldn't let me succeed. A wistful air somehow engulfed us, like sunlight through a window on a bleak November morning. He looked into my eyes, searching for something. Like he was looking directly into my soul. I remember what that was like, feeling proud. Even these days, it still happens from time to time. And me, so how do you handle it? The unreasonable demands, what's your trick? Like a burst soap bubble, the moment was suddenly over, and the wistfulness in his voice replaced by a somber tone. When they won't respect my professional opinion, I stopped giving a damn. In the end, Alpha became so difficult to work with that my boss refused to work with him, and dropped the client. Wow, I haven't seen this story for a while. I got it quite a while back, so I forgot how it ends. I'm sorry you were basically broken by this client, OP. I mean, I guess that just does sometimes happen. Some people are just too much to handle. If they're not willing to accept changes, I mean, that's just straight away, you just know you can't deal with these people. And guys, I think this post will be the last one for today. It's been a long one and a good one, so I hope you enjoyed, and subscribe to the channel for edit videos every second day. But with that said, you guys, thank you so much for watching. That's it from me. I hope you all enjoyed, and all I want to do is see you all here next time. See you later, guys.